Hello, everyone. It's wonderful to be able to connect again today. Um, I've had, I think, about a month off between us having little pauses and I experiencing some illnesses and some challenges in my life that had to take a little bit of time off. But I'm grateful to say that I'm doing much better and am happy to be back today in the Tao meeting, connecting with all of you here. And today, of course, I'm moving on, picking up where I left off. And I don't know if you noticed, but last presentation, I was experimenting a little bit with the new format, and I'm going to continue that with how I sort of move through the presentation. So hopefully this new format will be good for us, especially now that I think the audio problems are all squared away. So today's presentation will be called The Path of Life, and that's, of course, the title of the chapter for day 34. And the subtitle I've chosen is Past, Present, and Future. But I want to begin by having a little review of day 33 of the Tao of Joy Every Day. And that was, of course, grieving. And, you know, when I did this, there's a couple of issues. One, the audio is odd. I actually listened to the presentation again and saw how poorly the audio was. I couldn't even understand the sound of my own voice. And also, too, there were a couple of points that I really intended to make that I didn't. So I'm going to take the opportunity to use this summary also to add a couple of things that I actually didn't say back a month ago when I was covering grieving. So the first review, of course, is what I said about grieving was feelings, particularly feelings of grief, but really all feelings are real. It's not like they're made up. We know they're real. They're real in the sense that we feel them. Obviously, you can't give it a physical dimension necessarily, although you can when you're talking about pain. Pain is a kind of feeling that certainly manifests physically. But a lot of the feelings that we speak of, particularly like grief, can actually have a physical component of pain to it as well. If you've ever experienced deep grief, you can feel it in your body, believe me. And so it has, grief itself has a physical component. It has a component having to do with your mind, and it certainly can have a component having to do with your spirit as well. And you need time to work through those, but the spirit one is the key part of a lot of it. But all the rest is important as well. So too, the second point I made was that the Tao is not about suppressing feelings. Often when someone loses someone, it's very typical actually for people to deny the loss. Now you may say, how could you possibly deny the loss of someone close to you? Well, believe me, your mind finds ways to do it. You ignore, you think that there's a part of you that realizes they're dead, but there's a part of you that thinks that, you know, you're driving down the road, you'll hear their favorite song on the radio, and you'll think, man, I can't wait to go home and tell them I heard their favorite song. And then it occurs to you that when you get home, they won't be there physically. And that's very typical. If any of you have ever read or heard about Kubler-Ross's book, she talks about, I believe it's 7 stages of grieving, and one of them, of course, is denial. It's the actual suppressing of feelings, and that's not congruent with the Tao. The Tao doesn't say to suppress feelings. In fact, what the Tao is about it's about processing feelings, and in fact, grieving is analogous to life itself. Life is about processing our daily endeavors, the things that we do, the things that we feel, the things that we see, the things that come in through our senses. Those are all processes. And there's a physical component, there's a mental component, and there's a spiritual component. And the Tao path and the Tao teachings can help anyone. It's not secluded to there's only a group of the few. In fact, they're meant to help everyone, not only for this lifetime, but for forever, for whatever happens after as well. So attachment, of course, is an inevitable part of loving someone. And it's because we love someone that we get attached to them. And in turn, if we lose that person, or if that person loses us, actually, too, it can go both ways, right? None of us know when we're going to die. And none of us know necessarily when the people we love are going to die. So attachment will inevitably lead to suffering, but I don't see how you can love someone without attachment personally. Maybe there's a way to. I haven't figured it out yet. But so let me be honest with you on that dimension. I haven't figured out how to love without attachment. So, but the good thing about that is, to me, in my opinion, is there's three things that are forever. And this is kind of where what I really wanted to say and didn't. So I'm glad I had this opportunity in the summary to cover this. Love is forever. The Tao is forever. The true self is forever. So when someone dies, yes, we lose the physical aspect of them. Likely, we probably lose the mind too, because I think that's more directly tied in a way to, may at least be more directly tied to the physical, being that mind itself arises from the physical, so to speak. But there's a part of us, of course, the spiritual component, and that's where the true self is. And in a way, in my thoughts, I think that's what unifies us. We all have that Buddha nature. We're all unique in the sense that we have different talents, different abilities, and that's okay. Differences are okay as long as we use the talents we have to move forward, help ourselves and help others. That's fine. It's okay that we have differences, but at the same time, we shouldn't focus on how we're different from others. Instead, we should focus on how our talents can contribute to the larger whole of living, because living is something we all do together. We all share this planet. We share, if you're in a family, you share a home. If you're in a work environment, you share a work environment. We're always constantly living together. And so it's our true selves. If all of us can bring out our true selves, we'll have harmony, we'll have peace, we'll have balance, and those are good things to have. And so these things are forever now, and they will be forever even when we pass away physically, and we end up, in fact, arriving back from where we left when we were born. And as Derek pointed out at the end of the presentation, his latest book, The Tao of Happiness, in a way, if you read the section, not in a way, really, seriously, the whole book kind of is about the process of life, including death. And of course, many of you have heard Derek make this point before, I'm sure, but the idea being that when you're born, you're departing from a state of non-being and you're arriving in a state of being. But then when you die, you're departing from a state of being, but you're arriving in a state of non-being. And that's a cyclical process that we see all around us. We see it in nature. You may even see it in human endeavors as well. But that's something that you have to sort of look for, and will be revealed to you in its own good time when it's right for you. So to sum it up, in short, grieving the loss of the physical component is necessary but temporary. And also grieving spiritually, I think unless you're enlightened, that's probably inevitable, because I certainly grieved spiritually from all the losses of my life. And I don't even just mean the major ones. Sometimes it can be a little thing like, I don't know, losing something that you were really attached to. That's kind of easier to get over, but it's still a process. And sometimes those physical losses can trigger a feeling of spiritual loss. But in reality, there is never a spiritual loss. Your true self, your Buddha nature, the love within you, the goodness inside you is always there. And that's really what the Tao is about. It's about processing through those things and realizing that your grief is temporary, and in a spiritual sense, it really is unnecessary. Though don't beat yourself up too much if you can't live that. I know I can't. but I'm working on it. Okay, so now having covered the summary there of grieving, I want to move on. I'm just going to do a little check here to make sure the audio sounds okay. It sounds like it does, no problem so far. So day 34, the path of life. And in this chapter, Derek opens up the book the chapter itself by pointing out that the Tao encompasses everything. Now, of course, that includes the observable universe that we find ourselves a part of, but it also includes the path of our lives. All of us are on paths. And this chapter really is about introspection. It's about stopping and taking hold of where you are on your path in life. And, looking to the past, being aware of where you are in the present as in relation to your path, and where you'll be going in the future too. All of those three things are encompassed, which is why the subtitle I chose was past, present, and future. And of course, from a standpoint of physics, time remains an incredible mystery. In a way, when one looks at the laws of physics, and I'm no physicist, but I like to read books about physics, and books that are written for lay people like me, not for trained scientists. If I read a book that was written for a trained scientist, I wouldn't understand a word of it. But I do like the subject as it's relayed by very brilliant scientists who are also very good at communicating it to lay people. And what they'll tell you is that the past, the present, and the future may well be on equal footing. In other words, the past may never really be gone, and the future may not be set in stone at the same time. There's a fluidity to it. It's a very interesting subject, and of course, like the Tao itself, it's a mystery of mysteries at this point. So that's a very interesting component, and that's why I chose that subtitle. Now, on this day of the Tao of Joy every day, Derek, in fact, invites us all to ask ourselves some really introspective questions, questions concerning the path and the arc of our lives. And that's a good thing to do. And it's not only something that people who are Tao cultivators do, but other religions I've encountered this component as well. Judaism has a Talmudic aspect to it, where people are asked to turn inward. And I think almost every spiritual path that I can think of, that I know of, and I don't know them all, but I've studied quite a few of them, a little bit at least, there's always a component of turning inward and connection to the spiritual, to make sure that the connection between you and, if you call it God, or if you see it as a physical entity, there's always a component about connecting to that. And whatever it is that we're connecting to, whether it's personal or not, the point is the connection we make is real. And that connection is spiritual. And sadly, unfortunately, it's the easiest to want to ignore. It's really easy to get wrapped up in your mind. It's really easy to get wrapped up in the physical realities of life, like, boy, I got to provide shelter for myself and for the people I love. I've got to provide food. I got to provide shelter. It's almost like Abraham Maslow's pyramid of needs. Those things you just got to do. They're part of living. And so it's very easy to ignore the spiritual component, but the spiritual component is important as well. It's as important, probably, frankly, more important than the mundane things that we spend our lives on. But yet, hey, I'm not telling you, hey, don't clothe yourself. Don't provide shelter for your family. Don't provide for your family. Don't give your family all that you would want to give them. That's fine. But remember too that you can't ignore the spiritual component. And that's really what the most important part of our path. And that's what we meet about here. This is a meeting about spirituality. So delving into it, Derek kind of brings up, 3 questions you might ask yourself. 1, where are you on this path today? And I'm not just talking about the Yiguan Tao path, though that's about the path that many of us connecting to this meeting have been initiated to, have made the 3 treasures part of their practice, have their daily meditative practice in a way, have made other commitments having to do specifically with Yiguan Tao. The one that specifically comes to mind is the Coaching ritual, having to do with cleansing the mouth, and of course also having to do with vegetarianism. So those two things are part of the Yiguan Tao path. But when you're asking where you are in the path, you may not necessarily been initiated into Yiguan Tao, and maybe you will be one day if you feel that you want to do that, or maybe you never will. But the point is, you're on a path because the Tao encompasses everything. And of course, the wonderful thing about the Tao is because it's absent of all dogma, we don't have to say, hey, Christian, if you really want to do this right, you better give up what you believe now and come see it the way we see it. No, that would be wrong to do, and no one would ever do that in the Yiguan Tao organization. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit toward the end of the presentation. But the point is, whatever path you're on, it's good to take stock and see where you are. Where are you on that path? Is it working for you? Is there something you can add to it in terms of spirituality? Maybe a spiritual practice. Maybe a physical practice that can help your spiritual practice. Maybe a mental exercise that can help you improve and so forth and grow. So all those things are questions you might ask when you're asking, where are you on the path? What are the things I'm doing on this path that are propelling me forward? And secondly, how do you feel about your place in the present moment? Yes, the present is constantly becoming the past. The future is constantly becoming the present in one sense. And it feels like because of the arrow of time, we only go forward. And from a practical standpoint, living here on Earth, that's certainly true. We don't see eggs unbreak. We don't see cream unmixed from coffee. But yet, so there is a direction, and our lives are always in a direction. And so when we're taking stock of how we feel about where we are in the present moment, it's where are we on the path of the present moment as we move forward through the arrow of time. Those are all interesting questions to take stock of and ask yourself. And is it where you should be? Is this the best path for you? Or put it this way, if it's not, what can you do to make the change necessary so that it is the right path, so that you know that where you are at this exact moment is where you should be. As an example, this morning I had a wonderful morning. I got up very early and I played with my daughter. And in doing that, I realized this is exactly where I should be right at this moment. And why do I know that? Well, because I could feel it. But not only could I feel it, I experienced it, which is why I could feel it. And that was, of course, a good feeling. And so being on the path is the sum total of all the things we do on the path that tell us if we're heading in the right way, the right direction. So as I said, it is good to take stock of life from time to time. Look at your past to see how you got here. Where you are in the present, you arrived here through a series of steps. And as you look back through the arc of your life, you can learn a great deal from the past. Both in the sense of when you've been successful, you might turn inward and say, why was I successful? And try to repeat those things that made you successful. As you look back, you might see some failures, some shortcomings. And that, of course, failure is a wonderful teacher. I always say to people, rob failure for everything it has to teach you before you let it go. Because failure has a lot to teach. And so does success. You know, it's the flip of the coin. The success has a lot to teach us as well. Okay, so you might say, what were some of the crossroads you encountered and choices you made? We all have to make choices in life. You know, you come on a path, and sometimes whether you planned it this way or it kind of fell on you, you find yourself coming to a crossroads as you're walking, and you have to make a decision. And you might look at the crossroads you've had in the past and analyze the decisions you've made and say, well, were those good? Did I choose right? Did I choose the path that was right for me? You know, as Robert Frost said, you know, two roads diverged to yellow wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that made all the difference. So in the choices that you've made when you've had crossroads, were those good results, or were they results that could have been better? And that's important to take stock of it so that you can make better choices in the present to shape a better future for yourself. So it's good to have a plan or a direction when it comes to the path of life. As you look to the future, you might ask yourself, what do you see coming? Is there anything you can anticipate? What are the problems you're likely to run into? Are you prepared for them? You know, in life, we sometimes have some real tough situations that we have to deal with. And these are teaching moments for ourselves. They're times for us to teach ourselves things. They can be really hard, but you know what? It's funny, as I look at the arc of my life, yeah, I've had crossroads. I'm kind of standing at one right now, actually. There's been a change in direction in my life that I've had to adapt to. And in doing so, I have to look forward and say, what can I do? What are the resources I have now? What is the best decision I can make to get me going in the right direction? And I'm so thankful for my finding the path, the Iguan Dao path, for meeting Derek, for experiencing Bill and Ed's and Carmen's teachings, and how much they've helped me, particularly at times when I find myself in difficult situations. And of course, the friendships too that have been cultivated as well in the process. There's so much good that is said here. There's so much wisdom that is shared. I can't tell you how over the years Bill's talks have had a real change in my life. I can't tell you how Derek's insights and counseling that he's given me have helped me in times of trouble and in times of goodness too. It just makes the goodness richer, and it makes the trouble easier to manage. And so you might as you look to the future, you might ask yourself, what challenges will you face? How can you be ready for them? What plan can you have to put things into action? What can you do on your path that will help? And when you talk about a path, remember that path there's three components to walking that path. There's the physical, there's your mind, and there's the spiritual. And don't ignore the spiritual, because it's easy to ignore unless you take the time aside to really spend time focusing on what's important. Because really, realistically, when you're talking about forever, the spiritual part is it is the most important part. Okay, so where is the Tao leading you? That's another thing you have to ask yourself. And I think in one sense, I can answer the question for all of us. It's leading us towards improvement. It's leading us towards what our full potential is. Now, if we can align ourselves with it, if we can be patient when patience is required, when we can take action when action is required, when we cannot meddle when not meddling is required, If we can do those things, and if we can help each other along the way, that's good too, then your life will become richer and happier, and you will get through the toughest times. Believe me. There's times I look back at my life and I go, how did I ever get through it? And it's funny, I honestly, I don't remember a lot of the physical or a lot of what I was thinking at the time. But I do remember that the spiritual inclination that's been within me, that's within all of us, in retrospect, as I look back, has been guiding me my whole life. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for everything with regard to Yiguan Tao, with regard to these meetings, with regard to sharing our spiritual insights with each other. And so many people in this meeting have been in it so long, and frankly, I'm sure are far more advanced than me. And those people too, some of them have had the privilege of actually knowing and have helped and counseled me, and I can't tell you in words how grateful I am for all of that. Okay, so the path, you might ask, are you on the right path? If not, what path is right for you? What do you have to let go of to go forward on the path? And so lastly, I want to cover this because there's this idea, of course, that all religions are true. And I would certainly not say that someone else's path is not true. That would be absolutely wrong for me to say. And in fact, it's a component of Yiguan Tao to not engage in that kind of behavior. And sadly, I have in the past, and I sincerely believe that, no one has truth locked down all for themselves. Truth is a very interesting idea, because truth is complicated in a way. That's why when you take an oath in a court, if you've ever had to for any reason, notice that they ask you to swear an oath to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And it's funny because that oath really sort of covers the three kinds of deception you can encounter in life, and self-deception can have a component of that as well. But the idea is that yes, there's truth in all kinds of paths, but there's a value to the path that we share. And one of the nice things about it that I haven't encountered in any of the others is that everyone is truly welcome. Now, others will say that, I found, but they won't necessarily mean it when the rubber hits the road. And you can always tell by who's criticizing and who's pointing a finger at who has understanding and who doesn't. The person who compliments versus the person who criticizes. It's really easy to tell which one you'd like to fellowship with, right? And this of course, is within every religion. Whether it's Christianity, Islam, or a religion that someone made up last Thursday, it doesn't matter in a sense. The truth is the truth. And in all honesty, criticizing others means that you're not following whatever path you're on correctly. You're stopped. You might even be walking backwards if you do that. So it's good to take stock of the path of your life and to be honest with yourself about your shortcomings, what you do well and what you do not so well, and to address those things. And that's really what day 34 was all about in the Tao of Joy Every Day. So I want to get into the summary now. it's good to turn inward and take an honest look at where we are on the Tao path, which encompasses everything, including our individual life paths. We should all be aware of our past, examine it, review our choices, and then make corrections and changes where needed. We should take stock of where we are at present as well. Enlightenment can literally be a second away, a shift in thinking, a change of heart. The recognition of the spiritual aspect within each of us can make all the difference. So all paths are deserving of consideration and respect. Loving kindness and compassion should never be denied to anyone because of the path they have chosen for themselves. We should never exclude anyone because we think their path is wrong. It's not for us to say. It may well be right for them. Focus on your path and live in harmony with yourself and with those you interact with as well. Whether it's at work, whether it's in your family, whether it's with strangers, whether it's with people who frankly don't treat you so well. That can often be the hardest one, but how you react to them, how you interact with them says a lot about who you are and how close you are to your true self, because that's what we're here for. Enlightenment really is just bringing your true self forward. It's already there. It's just waking up. So that is at the heart of sincere Tao cultivation. And I see I've gone a little over here. I apologize for that. Let me just wrap it up. So I want to add an invitation here. If you've learned from the Tao of Joy every day or from the Tao itself, perhaps you'll want to share what you have learned with others by presenting on one of the 365 days in the book, or just any topic on the Tao that you feel you've gained insight in that me or Derek or Bill or anyone connected to this meeting or anyone who will connect to this meeting might benefit from. Hey, it's worth sharing. If you shared it and it wasn't any help, no harm done. If you shared it and it was, well, that's pretty good. So sharing the Tao insights you've learned with others will deepen your understanding as well, which is a nice little benefit. And so, as always, I want to end with the book recommendation, The Tao of Joy Every Day, a great book to use daily to help one study and learn the Tao teachings and put them into action. So there it was, The Path of Life, Day 34, Past, Present, and Future. Thank you all so much for taking the time to listen to me today. I'm sorry I went 3 minutes over there. I hope you all have a wonderful Sunday and a wonderful week as well.
Alex, thank you so much. May I request that summary slide again?
Sure.
Yeah, I was especially taken in the early part of your talk when you spoke of the Tao, not being about suppressing one's emotions, but about processing them. I find that to be so true. Occasionally, I come across people who say they follow the Tao, but they seem to have disconnected themselves from their emotions. So I think that's actually another way of suppressing it. And when I was discussing this with some friends, I remember getting the question about how this whole idea of suppressing emotions is kind of hard to get a handle on because, after all, emotions are not physical objects. You can't see them, you can't touch them, so it all happens in the mind. So is there like a helpful visual or a metaphor to maybe help in visualizing this whole idea of suppressing emotions? So I thought about it for some time, and eventually what I came up with, I wanted to share with the group as well. And what I said that day, it was in the middle of summer, and I said that, well, think about what happens when you go to a pool. When you swim in the pool and there's a beach ball floating somewhere in the pool. So you take the beach ball and you hold it down in the water. you have to apply some strength to hold the beach ball down so that it's closer to the bottom of the pool. Now you can keep that up for a while, but sooner or later your arms get tired and you get bored of this particular game, so you let go, and right away that beach ball comes zooming up to the surface. So I then suggested that if you think about emotions like the beach ball, that its natural tendency is to flow to the surface. That is, its natural tendency is for you to express whatever that emotion is. So with an effort of will, you can hold it down, but that never lasts. After a while, the moment you relax, the moment you lose your grip, perhaps unintentionally, that beach ball, your emotions, comes rising up to the surface. And that's when everyone knows exactly how you feel. So never a good idea to suppress your emotions. Much better to express them in a way that's compatible to the Tao.